Hello and welcome, and here we are back in the studio, and we're going to be working with clay today. We're going to be making a bowl or a pot or whatever you want to call it, and we're going to use a pattern. So we're going to roll it out, we're going to roll out the clay, we're going to use things to impress into the clay, because when we use our blue cobalt wash on there and then the glaze on top, it's going to really emphasize the decoration that you do on there. So I'm just going to show you the end product. Here's a nice bowl, and when I say using a pattern, you can see how this works really well because we get some nice folds in there. But I'll run you through the whole process, yeah, we'll have a play. So that's one, and here's another, and the difference being that this was the same amount of clay exactly. It's just how much I brought the clay up into the folds. So you've got one that's a lot more open and one that's a bit tighter and closed. So yeah, it just depends on what you like and what you fancy. So this is going to be a video that's going to run over 2 weeks because I've got two different things for you to do. So I'm going to begin at the beginning where we always start. Make some room here. I have rolled some clay out, but I just wanted to talk you through rolling yours out. So generally when you've got your clay, it's just a piece of kind of rectangular like this. So the first thing that I would do would be to get it into roughly a roundish shape like that. Then using the heel of your hand here and rotating it, you want to flatten it out a little bit. It's just easier to do it in your hand than it is with the rolling pin because you're able to keep it round. So now I've just turned it over the other way and I'm just rotating it in my hand and just using the heel of my hand just to flatten it out into more of a pancake. I'm going to check around this surface here, make sure that there's no kind of big creases, because wait till I show you what happens when you have a big crease. So say there was a crease in the clay there. Well, I've just done it, so yeah. Then what happens is, as you roll or maneuver the clay outwards, you're just going to have that crack that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, so if you have areas that are not smooth, what you want to do is smooth them out, and then away you go. Bit of a damp old day today. Honestly, I think I'm getting a bit I'm turning into a weary old woman talking about the weather, but honestly, so looking forward to some nice dry days and bright days. Okay, so we've got something vaguely round there, and I'm just going to use the rolling pin, making sure that there's no creases in the material because that will be your downfall. And if you think, oh, I think there is a crease there, don't lift the whole thing up, just lift half, smooth it out, put the clay down, half, smooth it out, clay down, sorted. Okay, any of this kind of stuff and then putting it down again, you end up getting yourself into more of a pickle. So just keep it flat, make sure it's smooth underneath, and away you go. Now, you don't even need to pick it up in theory. Here I am just rotating the clay on the cloth. You can use tea towel, a piece of material that you have. The more toothy the material, the more the texture will catch on it. Now that can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing depending on what you want. So if you had something like a piece of hessian, it'll give you that really rough crisscross texture to it, which is maybe what you would like. If you don't, then just use something thin. I always have bits of sheet or pillowcase that I have in abundance, and people give them to me, which is very kind when they've got holes in them. And just rolling the clay. The other thing about rotating the clay is that our dominant hand always presses down more than the other hand. So in rotating it, you end up making sure that your clay is a lot more even. Okay, so that's what you need to do. I'm just going to swap this over because I've rolled some out already. Just because it's not the most exciting thing for you to see me do. Right, so I've got this here, and I thought it might be useful for you to see. Oh, where's it gone? I had a penny here. Where's the thing gone? Okay, let's see what else we can put it up against to give you a guide. That's not going to help. Okay, well, let's just use a pencil, because you all have one of these pencils. So you can see it's reasonably thin. I suppose it's about the thickness of a pound coin. I thought I had one here, but anyway, seems to have gone walkabout, so never mind. But yeah, I'd say roughly the thickness of a pound coin. You don't want to go any thinner than that, because you may have problems later. Now you can see that that's a little bit kind of cracked around the edges, but that's not a bother, because we're going to actually cut it out, and we're going to just use something that you have at home. This is just a little IKEA plate that I'm going to turn upside down and use, but I'm going to just put that aside because I want to talk you through the pattern. So what I've done is I have a piece of paper. Don't worry about this, it is actually two pieces of paper stuck together, but that was just to avoid waste. So what I did was I put this on there, used my pencil, drew around, got my ruler, just did one in the middle and one on the side. They're not particularly true, if you know what I mean. They're not like accurate, like dead in the middle. I'm not worried about that. That's not that important to me. But what is important is that I get it even in the cuts that I make. So then what I did was I measured 1.5 inches on there, there, there and there. And then I cut out just a little slice out of there. And you'll see that that one is slightly bigger than that one, and that's not of any consequence to me. That's fine, that'll do, because what I want is to be able to do this pattern onto the clay, and then I will be able to fold it up. So first things first, let's get the clay back. Whoa. Okay. Right, so let's just pop that on there, just to kind of show you what we're going to be doing. But what I'm going to do is actually use this to cut out. So any knife that you have in the house, but if it's got a pointy bit, it's going to drag less. So if you have to, you can use that. But if you've got anything with a point on it, then that's much better. So what I do is be ready to turn. This is on a board, but you can have it just on your cloth. I have it here simply because I can demonstrate it all to you much better. I'd normally have it up on the turntable and I'd do this in one swipe, but I want to make sure that I'm using the materials and tools that you have, and to do it in a way that I would have to if I didn't have all these gizmos. Okay, so just take away all that excess. Don't need that. Roll it up into a ball. So this, if it's a bit dry, if you just wrap it in a cloth overnight, put it in the bag that I gave it to you in, it'll be much softer the next day. You don't really want to use it again, but if you did, you could use it just for the slip if you wanted to have a bit extra. So you will need some slip. So if I take this bit out of here, so this is your excess, and then what you can do is just with the scrubby old paintbrush, just take a bit of it. I like to make it nice and thin so that I'm getting it to coat the whole area. And what I'll do is just stick it into the bottom of the cup. Or you can do the thing where we made just a little pinch pot. I'll show you that either. But you can do that and then put a little bit of water. I usually have some old bottles with just plain water in it because I tend to mist this stuff around. So, and then you can just mix it like that. If you don't want to get one of your things dirty, one of your pots dirty, or you have enough clay, this is kind of, I suppose, most useful if you don't have much clay. But the other thing you can do, of course, is just make it into a ball and make a thumb mark in the middle like you've done your pinch pots, and then do exactly the same thing of water into the middle and just maneuver that around like that, so that it's a little bit like I suppose single cream, something like that. Anyway, back to here. Take that off. The important thing actually when you do cut around this is don't lean on there really hard. If you do, you're never going to get that off. So gently does it. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is just with my finger, in a real gentle way, I've got a little bit of extra just sticking out there, so I'm just going to trim that off, make sure I've got no other little bits. But I just want to gently run my finger around like that, and it'll just soften that off. Little bit stuck out there. Okay, so at this stage I'd be like, okay, so what kind of pattern, what am I going to do on here? So I might decide to kind of look at the middle and work my way out. So or I might decide to look at the outside and work my way in. So it's entirely up to you what you would want to do with that. I mean, you can take things like this, which will be a great aid to maybe get something in the middle. You know, just helps you get your eye in terms of placing what's going on there. So yeah, well, why don't I use that? I'm just going to have to move it here so I'm looking straight down at it. And just going to place that in there. Okay, so that gives me a great starting point at which I can start playing with other things. So on this one I have the same kind of thing right in the middle there. So what I'm thinking about doing now is just doing something just a little bit different. So I'm just going to use this card that we used for painting, and I'm just going to, I always do north, south, east and west, or 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, because that gives me something kind of even to kind of work things out through. But you can use anything, and in fact this kind of spare clay is really useful because what you've got is you've got something to kind of practice things on. So use the spare clay before you commit to what you're doing here. That wasn't very strong, so I'm just going to do that one again, and here and here. Okay, that's a bit up and down, but sure, that's all right. I'm not bothered too much about that. Okay, here I have just a paintbrush, end of a paintbrush, and I quite like it because it's got just a rounded thing. So I'm just going to kind of go down the middle like that. That one's much more, there's a lot more in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So just try and be consistent with everything that you do otherwise. So those are all consistent, and that one's a bit gone. So I'm just going to bring them all just a little bit longer so that I'm roughly in the same, so they're kind of as high up as all the other ones. Okay, that's grand. Okay, so what else have we got? Oh yeah, like this. Yeah, I know it sounds a bit peculiar, but what I'm going to do is just kind of give it a little band around here. And I know that the blue is going to catch on this really, really nicely. So I'm just going to go all the way around. I'm going to stop talking and just try and do it as quick as I can. Okay, that'll do. Right, so now I'm thinking, you know, the sea urchin thing that we did, so I'm going to just do something a little bit similar so that I have things that kind of work well together in a little group. I just want to fly through this really because I want you to be able to get on with it. So take as much time as you need. But if you're going to walk away and leave the clay for any period of time, anything more than 5 minutes, then you must cover it with plastic, or if you've got something like a big bowl, you could put that on top of it. Or if you've got something like we have a microwave and we've got a microwave cover, or a cake box lid, you know, anything, cake tin lid, anything like that. Okay, I'm just going to stop there. Now what I have been careful to do is not go too deep, because I don't want to come through the other side. I just want to mark make so that the cobalt is going to grip into it when we're ready for it. Okay, so now I showed you the first one, which was that. Showed you the second one, which is that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pop that on here. And I've cut these 1.5 inches in. All I'm going to do is just going to push it down so that I'm getting just going to cut those bits out. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Aren't I great? I can count. Crikey. Full of tricks. Right, so now we've got this. Now this is quite sharp at the moment, so what I will do is just using my fingers gently. See, I've managed to just squidge that down, so I can just fix that there. And as I said, I've got mine on a board, but you don't have to have yours on a board. You can just have it on the piece of material. And the reason I'm softening this off is so that we don't have any hard edges when it's done. Now, before I do anything else, I need to turn it over so that I can smooth out the other side. So on there, and I'm going from the point of cut, where the cut is, in there. And the reason for that is that I'm not dragging the clay out, because if I did, I'd end up with those kind of edges going a bit raggy. Okay. Bit raggy there. Just take the knife, get rid of that. So I've done all of those, and now I'm just going to soften off these edges here. 1, okay, so we want, well, it's up to you now where you decide whether you want to have the pattern on the inside or the outside, because if you want to, that can be the outside, where you end up bringing the sides up like that, or you can have it inside. I think just because I've got one that's inside, what I'll do with this one is do it on the outside. Okay, So the next thing you need to think about how this is going to come up together. So what I'm going to do is just scratch the clay on the right hand side of each of these. So I'm scratching it, scoring it, but I'm not going too deep. You don't want to cut the clay, you just want to scratch the surface. Okay, so that's all done on the right hand side. Don't worry if you think, oh, I've gone maybe a little bit wide or whatever. And now I'm going to do the other side. So, where were the cuts? Where were the scratches I made? Check there. Okay, so now we want to do it on the right hand side, on this side. So again, scratching it, crisscrossing. Anybody who's tidy will love this method of making. I actually do love this method of making, and I'm not tidy. I'm so pleased that you can't see the rest of the studio, because quite frankly it needs a massive clear out, and that's on my list along with 40 million other things at the same time. Right, so I decided, well, you can wait until this point till you decide what's going to be the inside or the outside, but I've decided that's going to be the outside on this one, so I need this to be on the inside. So taking your slip, what you want to do is make sure that you get that nice and covered on there. It's okay for it to go over it because it's easy, very easy to clean it back. Okay, right, let's get on with it. So the slip that we have is going to join with the outside and it's going to overlap. So my plan now is I'm going to have two hands either side of the clay, and what you're going to do is you're going to lift it up like that, and you're going to just gently give it a little squidge. Very technical term. Don't worry about anything else because you're going to come back to that. That's enough just to hold it for the moment. Next, hands either side, lift it up so that you're putting the right one slightly forward so that it's going to go on top of it, and we're going to give it a little squidge, helping it to catch. And again, magic, isn't it? Don't you just love clay? Yes, Karen. Okay, so at the moment that's looking a little bit wibbly, but it's looking okay. It's folding nicely. So at this stage, I want to go over each one of those. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, I could tilt it so you can see it a bit better. Nope, need it tilted a bit more than that. Let's get this cup back in. Okay, I think you can kind of see there. Put that there, hold that. We don't want it all going sliding. Actually, we need to be a bit further in so you can actually see. Okay, so here you can see we've still got a little lip on there. So my finger on the inside, my thumb on the outside, or my fingers, it doesn't matter what you use, but what you need to do is use it flat so that you're keeping it all flat, because you don't really want to get finger marks in there. So I'm making sure that I'm right at the end there and just pushing that, and I'll continue just to rotate this. So at this stage, I know you wouldn't want to be on a cloth, but you can just use a placemat off of your table or a book or something like that. And what I'm doing again, exactly the same, just pushing that against it like that. Okay, and working my way around. Okay, so sometimes you'll go, oh, it's all a bit sloppy there. So if that happens, then what you want to do is to get yourself a clean paintbrush. Where are they? Okay, here we go. That's nice. So out of your nice kit of painting brushes, just use one of these, and if you just use that to kind of tidy up any areas, it'll soften it. And if you think, oh, I don't know, I think that's just looks like there's little bits missing, you can also just dip it into the slip and just kind of paint it over where you can see any little gaps, and you just push that clay together, and it's a perfect way to just tidy things up. So I'm lifting that just to kind of show you how that's worked, which is really nice. So that would be a lovely little bow. Okay, and again, if you didn't want it to be quite so kind of bowl shaped, you wanted it a bit a bit more open, then you just make sure that you don't fold them over quite so much. You can see there the difference in the fold. That's much much less clay overlap and a lot more. But the thing that I really like about this method is that I love the articulation of the clay as it folds over each bit, because it gives it a lovely rhythm to the piece. So that's it. The biggest thing about it as well is don't over fuss with it. And if you think, oh, but there's bits that I'd really like to clean up, yeah, then what you do is you set that aside, leave it for a day, cover it in plastic. You can alter the shape as well. Just, if you want it more square, you can make it more square just by pushing your hands in like that. If you want it more round, push them out, so you can play like that. But what I'd suggest is, like, if there's like little areas that you think, oh, I'd like that to be just a bit cleaner looking, then what I would do is wait for it to set up, which means harden off a bit, and wait until it's this kind of consistency, or kind of leather hard, so it's not moving around. And then what you want is just a piece of sponge, anything will do, just something that you have at the cleanup in your sink in the kitchen, and just by rubbing it when it's drier will give you a really nice finish on there. The important thing is, though, keep it on the ground, keep it on the floor. I'm after showing you it up here, but unfortunately people who aren't used to handling clay an awful lot have a tendency to kind of hold it where it'll break off. So I really, really want you to be able to keep your work safe. So you'll see that whenever I handle something, if I have my thumb over here, it's because it's resting on here. So I would never, ever, ever, ever hold something like that that's not fired. In fact, even if it was bisque fired, I wouldn't handle it like that. So yeah, when you do if you are doing any cleanup, keep it on the ground, floor, table, board, whatever it is, and clean it up like that. What's even better is, oops, I'll just take this. What's even better is when it is a bit drier like that. If you need to put it up on an edge or something, then put it on a cloth on an edge, so that you can, clean up any areas there. But really, really, really try not break it, please, because it's really hard for me to stick them back together for you, and sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it does, but it's just a bit of a lottery. So that's that one. Okay, so I'm going to kind of whisk through and get another piece of clay, because this is the following week's video, but because it's the same kind of process, I'm putting it all into one. So same thing, cutting the clay out. Here's the last week's, well, the one we've just done, and this is exactly the same, except this one is going to be much more upright. So it's going to be more of a cup, really. So you could use it to drink out of, or to put your sugar in, or keep things in, or whatever. What I'm going to do, just for the sake of doing something really, really quickly, because you get the whole patterning thing. Patternation, whatever you want to call it. Oh, here we go. I'm just going to pick this up. It's not really terribly appropriate because probably isn't quite, well, is it tall enough? Actually, it is. That's good. Yeah, this is just the thing. Right, which side is best? We've got some rubbish on there. We don't want that. Oh, we'll just use the other side. I'm just making sure that both sides are, basically, if one side looks better for the clay than the other, then that's what I'll use. So this is, I'm just using this to wallop something straight on there. So if you have you know, what you call it, embroidery, macrame or crocheted bits and pieces like this, then you can just roll them in the same way. You can use leaves, you can use anything in the same way that we did the bowls when we did it last term. So I'm just rolling that into the clay. Better move that one out of the way because it's getting knocked. Okay, there we go. I'm very happy with that. It's nicely in there. Okay, I'm gonna pull it out. But magic. Do you just love clay? Right, so I'm going to take this and aim it roughly into the middle, using that one as the middle point. I do need to cut it round. So actually this is quite useful because I can see through, and I'm just going to have to move it towards me just so I get it right. That's grand. Cut it round. Doobie doobie doo, doobie 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 doo. Okay, now there we go, little pop. That's great. So just going to smooth that with my finger all the way around. Get rid of any extra bits. Lovely. And I'm going to peel it off here. It's a little bit damp. This clay is a little bit wetter than the other one I had. It's actually I'm going to just turn the board over so it's a bit drier there. Turn that over. Don't mind that, it's just the little hole that's in the clay, in the board rather. It's picking up the texture. Okay, so this is going to be on the outside, I know already, because it's going to be a much more of a kind of cup type shape. So again, going into the middle like that. Now, the difference between this one and the other one that we did, just trying to get that roughly in the middle, is as you can see, these cuts are a lot further in. So what I did was from the kind of middle point, so when I had it like this, I measured 2 inches and 2 inches and just marked them off, and then I also measured 2 inches this way. So that's what that 2-inch opening is there, and that one there. So just quickly try and wallop this out. Now this one, especially if your clay is a little bit wetter like this one is, I would suggest that you might need a studio assistant other than the one that I usually have at hand, who is Tulip, and absolutely no real use whatsoever. So yeah, if you can get somebody to be on hand when you're ready to bring it up and fold it, literally just to hold it, that would be useful. So this is actually the wrong way around. So it would have been better for me to have cut it while it was the other way around. But anyway, there we go. Ah, do you know what? I could have scratched it when I was there. Oh Lord, there's always something in there. Okay. Oh yeah. So before we start scratching, just softening off that edge. Okay, and now I'm going to scratch it all the way along the right hand side, and this is going to have a pretty good fold over on it. So just doing the right. Are you right there, Patty? Are you right? Okay. So yeah, you shouldn't really have to kind of flip flop it over all the time. And actually, when I'm in the studio, what I usually do when I turn things over is I flip them like that, flip them that way, yeah, and then that's how I normally do it. Okay, so this one also on the right hand side, and just to remind you, you've got it now on the left hand side there, so it's just always on the right hand side where this is going to join in. I know this bit's a bit tedious because you know what to do now. So we just want to skip to the bit where I start folding it on up, so feel free to do that, because you can fast forward and I can't. Okay, and taking the slip, I've got a tub of it here, so I'm just putting a bit more in. Oh, now, so this will be the other way around, won't it? Because we want that pattern on the outside. It's a bit dry. Dry? It's a bit wet on there, so I'm just trying to kind of let it flop off into my hand. There we go. Okay, so this is the inside. So splatter that on. Yay, right, now we're at the exciting bit. Okay, so this is the point at which you're lifting up and you're joining it over like that. Okay, so just a gentle but firm push in there. Now, if you've got somebody around and handy, if you can get them just to stand there like that, and then you can do the other bits. Or if you feel comfortable, then just hold it in your hand like that and squidge that one up, rotate it, squidge that one up, and then your last one. Okay, so I mean, this is a really nice little vessel, but what I need to do now is holding my finger on the inside like that, right down at the bottom. Right, let me see how I can do this without it falling all over the place. Let's get back that coffee cup. Okay, yeah. So what I want to do is I've got my finger right down to the bottom there, and I'm using my fingers or the palm of my hand, whichever is working, just to push against the clay. I'm going to put it back down again because I need to be able to do it properly. I need to just make sure that it's all standing okay. So I did that one, first one, putting your hand in and just rolling your fingers against it, because there's two things that you want to do. One is that you're wanting to join the clay together, and the other is that you're wanting to get rid of any potential air bubbles that are in between the clay. Now, some of you might be put off and going, oh man, I don't think that's